Anna had always been a believer in the idea that hard work and loyalty would eventually pay off. For over a decade, she had dedicated herself to the company, steadily climbing the ranks in the marketing department. It was a typical morning, quiet, routine. She stood by the coffee machine, pouring herself a cup of coffee, the rich aroma filling the air. It was the start of another busy day, and her mind wandered to the list of tasks waiting for her attention. The door to the break room swung open with a sudden whoosh, and in walked Richard, the newly appointed CEO. He was the son of the company's founder, a man who had built the company from the ground up. But Richard was different. Unlike his father, who had always valued respect and loyalty, Richard seemed eager to prove that he was in charge, and that meant pushing boundaries, making swift decisions that had little regard for tradition. Richard didn't greet Anna or even glance her way as he walked to the coffee machine. His eyes were cold, focused, as if she were merely part of the furniture. "Anna, come to my office," he said, his voice direct. No pleasantries, just an order. Anna followed Richard silently down the hallway, her mind racing. She had been with the company for over a decade, building her reputation from scratch. She had poured her heart into her work, whether it was developing marketing strategies, nurturing client relationships, or stepping in to fix problems when others were overwhelmed. But today it felt different. Richard's brisk pace and lack of acknowledgement made her feel like an outsider in a place she had once called home. When they reached his office, Richard didn't invite her in or gesture for her to sit. Instead, he remained standing behind his desk, flipping through a stack of papers. There was no warmth, no appreciation for her years of service. It was as if she were just another name on a list of people to get rid of. "You're fired," Richard said flatly, barely looking up. "We're moving in a new direction, and you're holding us back." Anna's breath caught in her throat. She had worked tirelessly for the company, building relationships, closing deals, and leading the team. How could he just dismiss her without any regard for the work she had done? She opened her mouth to speak, but the words caught in her throat. Richard didn't wait for her response. He just continued flipping through his papers, clearly uninterested in the impact of his decision. "Pack your things, you're done here," he added casually. Anna stood there, numb for a moment, trying to process what had just happened. She had been fired in an instant, with no warning, no explanation. For years, she had thought her loyalty to the company would matter, that the relationships she had built and the work she had done would be recognized. But all of that seemed meaningless now. Instead of reacting in anger or frustration, Anna forced herself to take a deep breath. She wasn't going to let this man, this arrogant CEO, get the satisfaction of seeing her crumble. She straightened her back, gave him a calm, collected smile and said, "Understood. I'll pack up and leave." With that, she turned and walked out of his office, her mind in turmoil, but her resolve strengthening with each step. As she passed the employees seated outside, they looked at her, sensing something was wrong. Some of them started to stand, ready to ask questions, but Anna shook her head subtly, signaling them to stay quiet. When she reached her desk, she packed her things in silence. The weight of her years of commitment to the company was heavy on her shoulders, but she didn't let it show. As she left the building, the realization of being let go without a second thought settled deep within her. The drive home felt longer than usual. Anna couldn't help but replay every moment of the past few hours over and over in her mind. It didn't make sense. Richard's abrupt decision to fire her without even considering the work she'd done for the company, it felt like a slap in the face. She had poured more time into this job than she cared to admit, often sacrificing personal moments for the sake of deadlines, for the company's growth, and for the trust placed in her. The late nights at the office, the business trips she'd taken at a moment's notice, the times she had held back tears during personal crises but still managed to show up and deliver results. She had always believed that loyalty to the company and hard work would eventually be rewarded. Yet, here she was, dismissed, like she didn't matter. Her hands gripped the steering wheel tightly as the city passed by outside her window, blurring into the distance. Why? That one question gnawed at her. Why had Richard done this? It was as if everything she had done for the company had suddenly been erased. She thought of the years she had spent helping to build a solid client base, of how much she had sacrificed for the company. How had it all amounted to nothing? Yet there was no anger in her. Not yet. Instead, a strange sense of curiosity consumed her. What had Richard seen that she hadn't? Why had he acted so hastily? She knew there had to be more to it. This wasn't just about her. It felt personal, like there was something she was missing. And so, as she sat in silence, she resolved to find the answer, even if it meant going back to a place that had already discarded her. She could feel the tension in her chest rising. This wasn't over. The next morning, as Anna sat at her kitchen table, staring at her untouched coffee, her phone buzzed. The number on the screen was unfamiliar, but something inside her told her to answer. She picked up the phone, still not ready for what she was about to hear. "Anna, this is Charles," the voice on the other end said, sending a shiver down her spine. Charles Cole, the company's founder, the man who had hired her all those years ago. She had never expected to hear from him, not after what had happened. "I just found out about what happened yesterday," he continued. "Why did you pack up and leave? What's going on?" Anna's heart skipped a beat. She hadn't expected this call. "Richard fired me," she said, her voice steady despite the emotions that threatened to overwhelm her. There was a long pause before Charles spoke again. His voice now had a certain urgency, as though something had just clicked in his mind. "Did Richard read your contract?" Anna furrowed her brows. "What do you mean?" Charles sighed deeply. "Anna, there's a clause in your contract, one I insisted on after the last acquisition disaster. You're the sole negotiator for the Western deal. Without you, that deal can't happen, not legally, not ethically." Anna froze. Her mind raced as the truth of what Charles was saying sank in. Richard hadn't read her contract. He hadn't even bothered to check her role and authority before firing her. He had acted rashly and without thought, putting the company's biggest deal in jeopardy. Charles continued, his tone more measured now. "I don't think Richard realized the gravity of what he did. He doesn't understand the implications yet, but I'm going to fix this. You're the only one who can finalize this deal." As Anna listened to Charles, her feelings began to shift. The betrayal still stung, but now something else was rising within her. Control. Richard had made a dangerous mistake, and now it was up to her to fix it. The Western deal wasn't just important for the company, it was her leverage. She wasn't going to be a victim of this situation. She would take charge and let Richard face the consequences of his own recklessness. "Thank you for telling me," Anna said calmly. "I'll think about what comes next." As she hung up, Anna felt a new sense of determination. Richard's impulsive decision had given her the upper hand. It was time to take control of her destiny and make sure the company and Richard understood her worth. The next few days were a blur of silence. Anna didn't respond to Richard's repeated calls or his frantic emails. She knew he was panicking. He had no idea what he had done by firing her. Instead of seeking revenge or trying to fight back immediately, Anna chose a different path. She used the time to carefully review the Western deal, looking over the contract details with meticulous attention. Her mind was sharp, her focus unwavering. She spent her evenings at home, alone with her thoughts, reflecting on everything that had transpired. The pain of being fired so abruptly was still there, but it was slowly being replaced with clarity. Richard's rash decision had not only threatened her career, but also jeopardized the company's future. He had no understanding of the situation, no concept of the stakes involved in the Western deal. But Anna did. She was the one who had been working on it for months, the one who knew all the details inside and out. Then on the fourth day after her dismissal, Anna received a call from Nicole, a former colleague from the marketing department. Nicole's voice was laced with excitement, her words spilling out quickly. "Anna, you won't believe this. Richard just got a serious dressing down from his father. It happened in front of the entire office." Charles walked in, slammed the Western contract on the table, and asked one question. "Did you even bother to read this before firing Anna?" Anna felt a sense of vindication sweep through her. It wasn't about the immediate gratification of Richard's embarrassment. It was about the fact that Charles, the one person who mattered most in this company, recognized Anna's value. Nicole continued, "Richard looked like he had seen a ghost. Charles made it clear that if the Western deal fell apart, Richard's position was in serious jeopardy." A smile tugged at Anna's lips. Richard's arrogance had cost him, and now he was paying the price. The power dynamics had shifted. Anna wasn't the one scrambling now. Richard was. Anna spent the rest of the day thinking carefully about what came next. She wasn't going to rush back into the office just to fix things. She knew her worth now, and she was going to make sure her return was on her terms. The more she thought about it, the clearer her path became. She would finish the Western deal, but she would do it as a leader, not just as an employee, trying to get back what she had lost. That evening, as she prepared to go back to the office the next day, Anna made a decision. She would return, but only if Charles and the company were willing to respect her authority and leadership. It was time to take control of the situation and show them that she was irreplaceable. The next morning, Anna walked into the office with purpose. The moment she stepped through the doors, the familiar hum of the workplace felt different. There were whispers. Glances exchanged. Her colleagues knew what had happened, her abrupt firing, the sudden return, but none of them knew exactly what to expect. Her every step seemed to echo in the silent hallway. The receptionist greeted her with a nervous smile, the kind of smile that only someone who's aware of the drama unfolding in the background could muster. "Miss Williams, Mr. Cole is expecting you," she said, her voice slightly higher than usual, as if trying to mask her anxiety. Anna gave a polite nod and walked past her, feeling the weight of every eye on her as she made her way to Charles's office. She didn't flinch, didn't show any sign of hesitation. Her mind was clear, focused solely on what she needed to do next. When she entered Charles's office, he stood up from behind his desk, a look of quiet relief crossing his face. He was the same man who had hired her all those years ago, the same one who had once seen her potential. But today, there was an unmistakable sadness in his eyes. He knew the damage his son had caused. "Anna," he said, his voice softer than usual, "I'm so sorry for what happened. I should have stepped in sooner." "Richard acted rashly," Anna replied, her tone calm but firm. "But I'm not here for apologies, Charles. I'm here to get the job done." Charles nodded, understanding her resolve. He knew she wasn't coming back just to patch things up. She was coming back to show that she had more than earned her place in the company, and that she wasn't about to be discarded by someone who hadn't even bothered to look at the bigger picture. "Of course," he said. "The Western deal needs to be finalized, and you're the only one who can do it. But before we proceed, I want to assure you that there will be no interference from Richard. He's not involved in any decision-making anymore. Anna gave him a sharp look. I don't want anyone questioning my authority or making decisions on my behalf. I need full autonomy over this deal. Charles met her gaze. Done. Anna spent the next few hours reviewing the Western contract once again. The details were all familiar, but she wanted to make sure everything was in place before the final meeting. She went over every clause, rechecked every negotiation point. She had no intention of letting anyone undermine her this time. As the team gathered in the conference room for the final presentation, Anna walked in like she had never left. The room fell silent as her presence commanded attention. The Western deal was now in her hands, and everyone knew it. This was no longer about recovering what she'd lost. It was about proving her worth and showing the company the kind of leader she had always been. As the final meeting concluded successfully and the Western deal was officially closed, Anna could feel a shift in the office dynamics. The atmosphere was no longer one of tension or uncertainty. Colleagues who had once avoided eye contact now nodded and offered smiles of respect. They knew what had transpired, and they saw her for what she had always been, a strong leader who could take charge when needed. Richard, however, remained conspicuously absent. It wasn't that he had left the company completely, but his presence had been overshadowed. Charles had made it clear to the board that Richard would not be involved in any major decisions moving forward. It was a quiet but significant move to diminish his influence. In the days that followed, Anna noticed that the company's internal environment had begun to change. There was a renewed sense of respect among the employees, a newfound appreciation for transparency and leadership. Anna knew that while the company had secured one of its largest deals, the real victory had been in the culture she had started to rebuild. But the work wasn't over. The trust Anna had built with the team had to be nurtured, and she was determined to see the company thrive, not just in terms of business, but in creating a space where everyone could succeed and grow. With the Western deal finalized, Anna turned her attention to the broader task at hand, rebuilding the company's culture. She knew that her leadership was more than just about making deals, it was about setting the tone for the entire company. She began by reorganizing team structures, ensuring that there was more transparency in decision-making and that employees were given the opportunity to voice their concerns without fear of retaliation. Anna also introduced mentorship programs, ensuring that younger employees had a chance to learn from those who had been in the company longer. The focus was on fostering collaboration, respect, and mutual growth. Anna's efforts were not without resistance. Some senior employees who had been loyal to Richard's way of working continued to challenge her approach. However, Anna's leadership was firm, and she knew that real change would require time. With every small victory, whether it was resolving a team conflict or successfully managing a new project, Anna proved to everyone, including herself, that she was the one in control. A few months after the Western deal, Charles called Anna into his office again. "I want you to take on a bigger role," he said. "You've shown me and everyone what true leadership looks like. You've earned it." Anna's promotion to Director of Client Strategy was a testament not just to her skills, but to her resilience. She had been knocked down, but she had risen stronger than before. This time, no one could take her position. The company was hers to shape. This section concludes Anna's transformation from being blindsided by her firing to taking charge of her future. The focus shifts from personal vindication to long-term change and leadership. Anna's resilience has shaped not only her career, but also the culture of the company, turning a difficult situation into an opportunity for growth and improvement.